Hi everyone, welcome to Holographic Health. This is episode number 5 now with Simon and Kate. And today we're going to open the discussion up around meditation. I know we've mentioned it a few times on some of the last episodes, but we've never really got into the juicy parts of meditation or sort of a reflection on how we use it in our lives. And Simon, I know meditation is a huge part of your life, a tool that you use, an anchor that you have in your life as well. And it's something that you really benefit from in terms of your practice and how you live your life. So we can just start by having a discussion around maybe what meditation is for you or whatever you really want to explore in that. And then you can just take it from there, because I also meditate too. And I think we have different practices, but similar purposes behind that, or benefits, or kind of why we use it.
Yeah, okay. Hi, thanks, Kate. So I first started meditation, I think about 14 years ago. And I was going through a really challenging time in my life, just like really questioning everything. And I started seeing a psychotherapist. And I think one of the best things that came out of the time that I spent with him was that he was a practicing Buddhist and had a strong meditation practice. And it was him that actually directed me towards meditation, for which I'm just really grateful to him for that. And I think, and his style of therapy was very much informed by Buddhism, and the understanding that the suffering that we experience is really caused by the mind, and our attachment to mind. Another word for this that is used in Buddhism is ego. And I think that the word ego is used slightly differently in Buddhism than maybe we use it in the Western world. So having an ego from this kind of Buddhist perspective is not like just thinking you're great, or, which maybe is the way that we use it often. We say someone's got a big ego or something like that. I mean, ego is a necessary aspect of self, and a healthy ego is definitely required to live successfully and to navigate, the life that we have. But an unhealthy ego can be a really cruel monster. And this isn't, as I said, necessarily about thinking we're great. It's often the opposite. It's often an aspect of self that sabotages us, that keeps us locked into some very unhealthy ways of being and perceiving ourselves and perceiving the outside world. Very much closely connected to the conditioned mind and the subconscious mind as well too, which I think we've mentioned before. And really, it's this egoic mind and our identification with it that really causes us so much suffering. So 14 years ago, I just started going to the local Buddhist center in Brighton in England, where I live. And it started off as once a week, maybe as a drop-in thing. And then I did some courses in meditation, learning different styles of meditation, and joined a few meditation retreats, which were amazing experiences, really amazing experiences. And really, since then, over the years, meditation has increasingly become part of my life and my lifestyle. I teach meditation here at the retreat in Thailand. And I teach mindfulness as well too. And I would like to talk about mindfulness in a moment,
Sure.
which is related to but slightly different from meditation. But I would say I've kind of come to a stage in that practice now where I don't really differentiate between life and meditation. The two have become one. So life is a meditation. And I think for anyone that does not have experience and practice of meditation, that might sound extremely dry. I know in the past, before I started meditation, you know, if you talk to me about someone who meditated, I think, oh, they must be like really boring, you know, really kind of boring, kind of humorless kind of person that just kind of to just sit around doing nothing. But it's so interesting, you know, it couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah.
And I found that the more that I meditate, the more I live my life as a meditation, the more joy I find in life, and the juicier life becomes. Not, you know, quite the opposite of being dry. So, and really, whatever style of meditation that we use, and there are so many styles out there, as you say, you and I probably have, you know, different styles that we use, and there may be for each of us different styles of meditation that we resonate with more than others, you know, and that's certainly the case for me. And I've tried many styles of meditation. But for me, the essence of meditation is with the breath, just connecting with the breath and staying present with the breath, being focused on the breath, and being aware of judgment, any kind of judgment that comes in. So there are these three key components of meditation. I think that's the right word, components, or three qualities of meditation and mindfulness, which are focus, to be present, and to be non-judgmental. These are the three qualities of meditation. And as we practice those in meditation, sitting on the cushion with the eyes closed, being focused, as I say, for me, on the breath, staying present, catching the mind as the mind wanders into the present, into the future, or looks for distraction in the present moment, catching the mind, bringing it back into the present. So there's this ongoing, what's the right word? It's just an ongoing process with the mind of observing the mind and bringing the mind back into the present moment. And we train the mind. It's literally training the mind. It's a little bit like having a dog, and you get a baby dog, and they like to go all over the place. They don't want to walk next to you, you know. So you have to keep bringing the dog back to the path, and you do it with gentleness and with kindness and with love, because it's such a cute little dog, you know, and it's adorable, you know, and in time the dog grows up and walks next to you and walks at your heel. And this is what you do with your mind. And equally, you do it with love, you do it with humor. You don't beat yourself up about it in the same way you don't beat the dog up about it, you know. You just and so we play this game with the mind and train the mind, and before we know it, that becomes the mind's natural state of being, which is present, and we become the master of our mind. We become the masters of our ego, you know? And So, and then the ego becomes very, very useful, and the mind becomes a very useful tool. But as I said, it's a very cruel master. So we need to become masters of our mind. And then the third aspect, as I said, is non-judgment. So it's really non-judgment of self within this process. Being very patient with self, not judging the self. It's not judging about whether you're doing it well or not doing. You can't do meditation well or badly. You either are or you are not meditating. And I think this is something that the modern Western mind maybe finds quite challenging, because we're very much educated towards results and goals, performance. Exactly. Yeah. So if I live in Thailand, and I really have quite an understanding of the Eastern mind, or certainly the Thai mind, and they don't have that. You drive a car here, there's no competition. There's no. So, and it's interesting because the traffic just flows. I mean, the driving's terrible, but there's very few accidents. Very few accidents, and it just flows, and you don't see anyone getting angry or enraged about it. This attitude of non-judgment, and then we practice this maybe initially 10 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day, and then we start liking it, right? Actually, before we know it, 20 minutes has gone past, half an hour has gone past, and actually you want to do it a few times a day and start to just really experience that no mind state, that state where the mind just quietens, and what's left then is a sense of being. And I think one of the real gems that comes from meditation early on is this light bulb moment when we realize that if we're observing the mind, then who is it that's observing the mind? What's observing the mind? It's not the mind. See, we're so identified with the mind. We're taught to think. Even the French philosopher said, I think, therefore I am. And that almost has become the Western mindset, hasn't it? That we value thinking, and if we're not, so when we're kids, we're encouraged to think about it. How many times are we told to think about it? Stop daydreaming.
Should we feel about it, shouldn't it?
Yes. So no, it's like please encourage children to daydream, to go into that kind of no mind place. And yeah, I totally agree with you, Kate. It's not, let's take the focus away from thinking and get into feeling. And again, for me, this is a very important part of the meditation practice, is really connecting, with the somatic experience of being, and feeling, and really feeling into that. And again, but with this attitude of observation and non-judgment, non-reaction as well too. That's right. So we start to really experience this state of no mind, and this perspective of observer, or what's often referred to as witness. We become the witness of being. We become the observer of self. And I know you've experienced this, and I'm sure there's many people listening to this that have experienced this. But if you haven't experienced this, it's quite an amazing experience, and it's such a blissful place to be in. It takes so much of the strain out of living, and and this so much suffering is created by feeling the need to be in control, and feeling okay when we're in control, but when we're out of control, it can be like so scary. But when we spend an increasing amount of our time in this state of witness, then there's no controlling to do. There's nothing to control. It's like, because if we're observing is a very neutral place to be. Like, if you were to, I don't know, look out the window and observe a bird, you've got no emotional involvement in what's happening to that bird or what that bird's doing. And so in the same way, we become the observer of ourselves and really begin to have a much more neutral, emotional relationship with what's happening. I think that's a good way to put it. So then we start to experience much more of an emotional equanimity, and that's very different. I know you and I spoke last week or the week before about the importance of really owning and experiencing and embodying our emotions, and I stand by that very much so. But it can appear that someone who has a strong meditation practice is not emotional. No, that's not true. That's not true at all. But what they have is this ability or this perspective of observing the emotion and choosing not to be overtaken by that emotion, or maybe not to react to that emotion, and ultimately to be able to transmute that emotion into a higher frequency. So that emotion may start off as something lower in vibrational frequency, like fear or anger or something like that. But if we're able to just be with that, to observe it and witness it, it will actually start to transmute into a higher vibration energy, which is then an energy that we can use constructively. So these emotions, these strong negative emotions, are not bad of themselves. They're just energies, and if we can harness those energies, they can become great fuel, as well, and give us great passion and great motivation. So these are some of the benefits of meditation. So just to finish off then, as I said, I feel now that my life has really become a meditation. So those qualities that have developed over the years of sitting on the cushion with the legs crossed and the eyes closed have really become they've become a way of being. They've become a way of being. So really now, life on the whole, and to be honest, there are times when I lose that centeredness, I lose that no mind, and I get caught up for sure, and I notice it, I'm like, I'm getting caught up. I'm getting caught up in fear. I'm getting caught up in anger, and there's so much going on in the world at the moment to do that, and these last 8 months or so have been incredibly challenging, and I know for people out there how challenging that is, and I think that's why you and I really wanted to bring this subject up today, because we both are experiencing those challenges ourselves, and we know many people that are, so the intention of sharing this is for that, really, that this cannot stress enough the value of meditation, particularly when life is challenging as it is at the moment.
Yeah, and there were so many things. I scribbled down a few notes while you were chatting as well, Simon, because I didn't want to just interrupt the flow of all of that. But yeah, our meditation journeys are quite different, but sort of very, very similar. I learned about meditation in 2011. It was a retreat that I went to in Australia, and it's the first time I'd ever even tried meditation or ever even really thought about it. And now when I think about meditation, it's part of my everyday life. I don't know how I did life before I meditated, because I don't even really want to remember sort of how crazy my mind would have been before meditation. And my experience was a little different in that the meditation that I started with was more around calming the mind through the different brain waves. So kind of from beta down through alpha and just, you know, until you just get to that state just before you go to sleep. And it was a sort of meditation practice to get into the subconscious mind to start reprogramming what's in there. So it was a different sort of entry point that I think maybe many people are used to coming into meditation from, and it's just because of the sort that I was introduced to. And it was really touching on what you were talking about around, it was a process of beginning with what are all the different thoughts that you're thinking on a daily basis and beliefs that you have that are running that you haven't been aware of. And so it was a meditation practice to become aware of the subconscious and unconscious programs and thoughts that are running. And the only way to really become aware of that was to start a meditation practice. So to sit down and become quiet and to really tune in and understand what is flowing through and recognizing what is serving you and what might not be serving you, and then using meditation as a tool to really just start to reprogram some of that subconscious programming that's happening. And I guess just to explain that on a simple level, it's getting into that state where you are quiet and the mind is quiet, and you've tamed the thoughts to a point where you can use a meditation to start feeling into states that are joyful, things like freedom or abundance, or, you know, the feelings of genius, or even sort of programming your mind with thoughts and behaviors that are really supportive of your life and supportive to those around you. So kind of using meditation in that way, but a lot of similarities in the process, whether it's just to become still and in tune and quiet the mind down, or to use it as a tool for creating a thing in your life or changing whatever's going on. It's a similar process of, you know, these thoughts do come and the mind and the ego is there and it's telling you that you're hungry or to get up, or thinking of all these random things that you just don't need to think about right now, like what am I going to have for dinner, or, you know, there's things I need to go and buy on the shopping list or what have you. And just kind of the dog analogy you used, a teacher that I had would use he'd liken it to his stallions. He had stallions and horses, and he would train his stallions, and when he was on them training them, they could smell the mares, so they were very hard to quieten down. And the process, he said, was very similar to meditation at the beginning, where on the stallion he would just have to keep bringing the stallion back into the present moment, calming the stallion back down, taking its attention off the mares, off what's going on around them, and eventually the stallion acquiesces and forgets about everything that's going on, and he's right there in the present moment with him training. And he likens that to meditation. It's sort of to just gently keep bringing yourself back and letting the thoughts throw, and no judgment, and just keep bringing yourself back over and over really gently. And eventually you just get this beautiful moment where your mind goes quiet and it's bliss, and it just feels really wonderful. And then you become the observer, like you said. So I think we're so conditioned that we are the mind when we're not the mind. And at times like we're all experiencing right now, I think even if your life is going well, and maybe everything from a root chakra level is taken care of, you've got food on the table and you've got a job and everything like that is great, you can still get caught in fear or anxiety, especially with what's going on right now. And I find meditation a really wonderful practice to soothe those feelings that come up. So again, it's not about not feeling them, it's just allowing that to be there, bringing awareness to it, and just letting it dissolve and dissipate. And you can do that through the process of meditation. And then I also feel that's a really wonderful tool right now to help the world at large, because I'm in a meditation group. We meet once a day and we meditate as a group, and we've all come with our different things that we might be dealing with, or different things going on in our life, but collectively we come together to quieten the mind and really tune into frequencies of love or abundance, or whatever it is that it might be at the time. And that's our way of really, I guess, helping to put an energy out into the world that is the opposite of fear, the opposite of anxiety or anger or confusion or whatever that might be. So it's just an offering of that energy back out into the world that's more of what we want to have in our life. And that's where I found meditation really key for me in different stages of my life, because and sort of like you've said, I then become more conscious in my day-to-day. I don't think I'm quite at the point where my life is a meditation, but I'm very aware now when I am getting caught up in a story or I'm feeling emotions that are quite unsettling. Because of the meditation practice, I can become aware of that and observe from a different level of mind. And it's just so incredibly helpful. And I think, like I'd mentioned before we got on the recording, I didn't do meditation with my group a few times last week because my ego got in the way, and we're doing one meditation that I find quite boring, and I fell asleep in it one day, and I just thought, I'm not doing this. I'm going to have a week off, and I did have to laugh at myself with that, because by the end of the week I was having feelings of anxiety, or I was letting my mind literally take over, trying to make quite important decisions, which is challenging right now because of the world situation. It's quite hard to make decisions because a lot of them are based on not knowing something that lies ahead. So I did have to really pull myself back into line with that and commit and show up for my meditation, because it is a practice, like you mentioned. It's a training of the mind over time, and you might start with a minute. Even a minute a day might be enough for some people, and over time it becomes something you look forward to. And then when you stop doing it, you really notice the impact on your life. And I mean, we could probably talk about it for hours, but there's so many benefits to the meditation, because when we quiet the mind, we actually allow the body to start healing itself too, because we get out of the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And and we can create we can manifest things in our life through meditation, and heal ourselves back into balance. So we heal disease and all kinds of things. And like you said, I mean, you can think, oh, it's quite boring, but God, you can have some pretty spun out mystical experiences meditating, and all kinds of sensations and tingling and heat and all kinds of weird things can happen. So it's a really fascinating world to get into.
I would definitely agree with you. And as you say, we could talk about this for so long. There's so many different avenues we could go down with this subject, for sure. But something that I wanted to share with you, that you were talking about making decisions. So I'd like to share with you something that really has been happening for me increasingly over the last few years, as a consequence of meditation and living my life, as I say, as a meditation, is actually the what's the right word? Well, there isn't. I've realized there is no need to make decisions. That actually life unfolds, energies play out, but that doesn't mean that I have no part to play in what plays out. Where my part is, and this is something you just touched on, is through intention and manifestation. And this is a very, very different way of approaching life. And I wish I'd been taught this when I was young. Because what I was taught was, like so many of us, is that if you want something in life, you have to make it happen. And that often involves a lot of hard work, sacrifice, competition,
stress,
and
comparison, all
these
sorts of
kind
things.
And there's lots of decisions that need to be made, and sometimes they're hard decisions. You can't please everyone. All this kind of stuff. Okay, so what I started to realize a few years back is that actually there's a different way of doing all this, which is to really, well, it starts really with connecting with desire. Desire is a feeling that tells us what it is that we really want. I know that sounds really obvious, but wanting is not desire. Wanting is something that happens up here in the mind. Yeah. And actually what the word means is an absence of. So if we want something, there's an absence of it. So we spend our whole life wanting, which means we spend our whole life in the absence of.
Yeah.
So, and then we wonder why we never have the things that we think that we want. So desire is something different. Desire happens in the body. You can't think about a desire. You can't create a desire. Desire happens. And you need to be in touch with what's going on in your body. And this is where meditation really plays a part. You really need to be in touch with what's going on at a feeling level, at a really subtle feeling level in your body, to be able to connect with desires. And sometimes desires just kind of like hit you like a bus. You can't, we've all had that. Particularly, it might be a person that we have like a strong desire for, or to go somewhere or something like that. And that's great when those come. Those are so obvious, But oftentimes our desires are more subtle than that. So we connect. So I learned that I connect with my desires through meditation, and then through, as part of the meditation, I could create a visualization or an intention, which aligns with that desire. So if that desire was to, trying to think of an example, okay, yeah, maybe a desire to go somewhere. Let's say a desire to go somewhere. And so rather than thinking, right, there's this place I need to go, and there's things that I need to do to make that happen, there's decisions I need to make, blah, blah, blah. It's more a process of, okay, envision myself doing that, going to that place. How does that feel? Connect with the feeling of being in that place, and really get a real sense of the experience of um, of that place, and really kind of hold that vision and hold those feelings. And then the process in terms of how that manifests becomes really a process of observation and witnessing and just allowing. It's allowing, because what we do oftentimes is we want something, and we get stressful about making it happen, and all that energy creates resistance to the very thing that we believe that we want. And actually what our role is not to is to allow, rather than to force things to happen. It's to allow things to unfold. And the very best way to do that is just to get ourselves out of the way. And ourselves being this thing, this kind of thinking mind. I want this, I want that. What if it doesn't happen? I'm going to make it happen. And the fear of if it doesn't happen, blah, blah, blah. And all that stuff's going on. And that creates resistance to the very thing. So yeah, I just wanted to share that as one of the ways in which, for me, meditation has played a part in my life. So just really relearning this process of finding direction in life and allowing it to unfold, taking away the need to kind of make decisions, and it takes the stress, for me anyway, it's taken the stress. And it's also taken me on a journey that I could never have actually created in my mind. My mind, you know what I mean? So, and this is, everything that we talk about always kind of becomes intertwined, because we were talking recently about purpose, finding purpose. And this is how we find purpose. It's something that just kind of unfolds as a consequence to our non-resistance, to being in a state of allowing and connecting with desires, holding visions that are aligned with those desires, and then being the witness, being the observer, and allowing it to unfold.
Yeah, and I think to that as well, Simon, with the process of meditation and having the vision and getting out of the way, the process of meditation helps tremendously to see the opportunities or the synchronicities or whatever it might be as a result of having the desire and tuning in, because the more we can, I guess, acquiesce into the present moment and become more aware of what's going on around us, the more tuned in we become to what's being drawn in. And it starts to become quite uncanny, actually, when you have desire and this person just shows up, or this call comes in, or whatever. You just start to draw things to you, and it's quite fun, actually, when you get into that rhythm.
Absolutely. And I was just thinking of how we could maybe share some real life examples of this.
Yeah.
So I don't know, do you have any?
Yeah, I think I guess one of the bigger ones was, it was just before, there were a couple, but just before I moved to London, I was lucky enough to go to a retreat, and I was quite sick at the time. That's how I got into this, the journey that I'm on now. But one of the things that just started to happen were very uncanny, in terms of, I just learned about meditation not long before I left Australia, and this was sort of about 10 years ago, and got into the Joe Dispenza work, which is really meditation for manifestation in a sense. And all of these things just started to line up. So I was leaving my job anyway. I knew a year before I was moving that I was going to hand in my resignation. And then I think 2 weeks before I handed in my resignation, they made all of the marketing departments redundant and offered us jobs in Melbourne or a voluntary redundancy. So that was kind of the first thing that happened. So instead of handing in a resignation, I got a nice sum of money to leave. And then we had someone in the UK that would rent me a property before I even was in the country or had a job, which was not really heard of. And then when I got there, I was really struggling with not getting a job, but having any response to job applications, because I was sending them everywhere, kind of going into the ether. And I was using that meditation manifestation practice like we were just talking about, where I thought, I'm going to try I'm going to try this out, you know, and I would sit every day and just feel what it felt like to get a job and be in an office and, you know, have this thing that I wanted. And then that manifested in me getting a job within a couple of weeks that I could walk to from my house, and all these things just started to unfold and everything lined up. And in a way that I wasn't trying to do anything. It just all happened, I guess, in a sense. And
where would you say your meditation practice at the time kind of fitted in with that?
Yeah, so I was very new to meditation at the time. And so I was really playing around with the way I was introduced into meditation. But really it was, instead of spending all day, every day trying to figure all these things out, I thought, I'm going to get up in the morning and do this. I did the same meditation every day. And it was really just quietening the mind and then tuning into how it was going to feel to have a nice place to move into, to have a job when I arrived, to just sort of this feeling of just these things that I was desiring, that I wanted to have to make life easy. And I just thought, I'm going to play around with this and see if it works. And it did. And I think it was beginner's practice, because I was so excited by trying the process out, I wasn't in the way. And then what I noticed later on is I started to get in my own way with different things. But even living in the UK, after a couple of years, my visa that I had ran out and I needed a company that would sponsor me. And very long story short, I used a similar process, and it was in the face of everyone saying this is never going to work. Recruiters saying in my whole 40 years, no one's, you know, ever been sponsored in this way, and all the rest. And my friends thought I was crazy, because every day I would just go home from the job I was in and meditate every day. And they were freaking out, you know, like, what are you doing? You're just meditating every day. You need to be doing something about this. And I ended up, a job found me. They sponsored me. They did my citizenship. It was all, and I couldn't have planned it as it played out. It was just perfect boss, perfect job, you know, perfect everything. And it was just from trusting and getting out of the way and really tuning into how it was going to feel, and letting go of the attachment. I really had to let go of whether it was going to work out or not. And that was the hardest thing to do. And I just felt like I just didn't have any choice. I just got to a point where I have to live what I know is to be true, I suppose, in that, let go of that attachment, because if you do, then that allows the space for your desires to manifest. But it was a similar thing. It was just synchronicities and people coming in and things lining up that I just got. I mean, gosh, it would have taken me a hell of a lot of doing and going out and making happen to make it happen. And it probably wouldn't have been for my highest good in the end anyway, because the process wouldn't have been enjoyable along the way. So yeah, it's really interesting how that stuff happens.
That's a great example. And I'm not even going to share any example from my life, because I think you've kind of captured everything in that. And, you know, and the key points in there was that you were really connecting with the feeling of how your life was going to be, and in non-attachment. And I agree with you, that's probably the hardest. And that's probably why there is this kind of beginner's luck, isn't there? Because in the beginning, you're like, well, let's give it a try. I've got nothing to lose. And then when it works, then you start to become more attached to what you're doing and the outcome. So that is really, really key. So I just really suggest to anyone who's listening that this is new for, just start trying it. Try it with some very, very simple, mundane things that you literally don't have any attachment to. So connect with the desire. Food's a great one. This is a great one for manifesting. So just because we can connect with our desires, food, So this isn't about, okay, what time am I going to eat, and what should I eat? This is about, okay, what do I really fancy?
Yeah.
And then just really connect into that. Okay, and then really feel into what that's going to feel like. How's it going to taste, and there's the sensual aspect of it. And then once you've done that, just kind of let go and almost forget about it. Okay, and then wait for it to show up. And then as we practice with this, and we can get a little bit more ambitious, let's say, with our, and before you know it, it becomes a way of living, doesn't it? I mean, it does for me anyway. It really does. And thanks for sharing that, Kate. It was good, really good.
Yeah.
So look, there's so much more we could talk about with meditation, but I don't know how we're doing for time.
I think we're about time now, so we could wrap it up, and we could perhaps on some future ones share some, maybe some more simple practical kind of steps if someone's just starting out, or and if anyone's got any questions and things like that as well, and wants us to talk about a certain aspect of meditation or explain a little bit more, we can certainly do that as well.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah, and if anyone has any questions about how to actually just get started. But I would just say very briefly, if you haven't done any meditation before, just find somewhere quiet where you can be alone. You won't be disturbed. Sit down, however is comfortable. You don't have to sit in a lotus position like a Buddha. If you can, that's wonderful. If you can't, it really doesn't matter. Just sit down where you can be comfortable, in a chair, on the sofa, on a cushion, however. Close your eyes and breathe. That's it. Breathe and observe your breathing. Focus on your breathing. And that's the best place to start. And if you can take 2 or 3 breaths and stay present with those, it's a great meditation. That's a great place to start, really.
Yeah, you just made me think of it, another suggestion as well, if it could help for people that have super, super busy minds. I think most people are familiar with the child's pose in yoga. You just sort of on your knees on the ground and you lean forward and your forehead's on the ground. If you've got carpet or somewhere where you can do that, even on your bed, having this part of your head touching something helps to quiet the mind down, and so that can be a nice comfortable pose for some people to just be in and take a few deep breaths. It's really good for kids as well, to calm them down. And if you've got kids and everything's a bit hectic, you could just try taking a few deep breaths together and just playing around with that. And like you said, it doesn't have to be this typical thing that you think of with all your legs in a certain position and sitting a certain way. It's just really coming into the present moment, isn't it? Yeah. Thanks, Simon. That was great.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.